Talk about a trip down memory lane. This is older lane, and two significant life events occurred driving down this road. One 50 years ago and one 25 years ago. 50 years ago when I got my first flying job, 25 years ago when I bought my first Mercedes-Benz from Lane Older. So we're going down there today to pick up some old Mercedes parts. The main reason we're back here today is to pick up a bunch of old Mercedes parts. So what are we going to find today? Obviously going to be some sort of treasure somewhere. So Joel's asking, what in the world is under the tarp here? Go ahead and pull it back, Joel. Let's see what it is. Oh, look at that beautiful paint on this thing. Look at that. So Dan, what is this again?
This is a 300 SEL 4.5.
Wow. How many miles on it?
75,000 original miles. Still has the original spare tire in the trunk.
And for those of you who are familiar with the W109, you can see it sitting on the ground and you know why. Anyone out there need an old Mercedes jack? I think we have a few here. Next, we're going to focus on these three shelves right here. It's mostly Mercedes parts, but there's some Volkswagen stuff in there. But we're going to try to sort all this, find the treasure, and discard what's not. Well, if nothing else today, Joel's going to get a chance to learn a lot about Mercedes parts.
Yeah, there's quite a bunch of different parts here. I think of all different eras of Mercedes. I've seen stuff from the 50s already all the way up to the 90s. So this will be quite fun.
Check this out. I'm looking at all these wheel bolts and I'm trying to figure out just how many Mercedes Lane must have owned to collect this many. Just when I think I'm getting ahead of it, it just keeps coming and coming.
I think these are the set of bags he was talking about for the 4.5.
Let's take a closer look. Yep, that's them. Those are the airbags.
He goes, oh, I got a new set of those back there
treasure
somewhere.
Indeed. Here's one I don't think anyone will recognize, except some of you old timers, okay? Anybody want to tell me what this generator came off of? And of course, it's not possible to save everything. But again, you know, there may be somebody out there that wants to restore this throwout bearing. Just let me know. So maybe it's time for a big sale on 1960s era's Mercedes jacks. But I want to show you what else is in the shop here. Take a look at this 300 TD wagon. And for you Mercedes enthusiasts, you know how special these have become, particularly in this condition. And like me, Dan likes to fly RC model airplanes. So he's got some of his collection up here on top of the cars, because these planes take a lot of space. Now we're going to head downstairs and tackle that second set of shelves in the hangar. So the parts we're going to load up from down below are on these racks. A lot of starters, generators, heavy parts. I see a couple turbochargers. But before we do this, I'm going to have Joel talk to Dan about some of the planes he's got stored in this building.
My father started my logbook when I was 8 years old, and I am now 66. So, and my mother soloed me when I was 14 illegally in a J3 on floats, and I came back on my 16th birthday and soloed legally. Well, it's just, I have a passion for taking things apart and putting them back together and, you know, trying to make them look new. It's just, I think it's, I got from my father, it just goes against my grain to put a rusty part back on anything, car, airplane, bicycle. So the satisfaction I get when I take something that's completely torn down to nothing and bring it back to make it look like new or better than new. This is our 1960 Cessna 180 that has been in the family for quite a few years. I think the last time it flew was in the late 90s. early 2000s. We're doing an extensive rebuild on it, new fuel tanks, and overhauled propeller, just all the stuff that goes bad over time. So we hope to have it flying here within the next couple of weeks. Well, the 180 is, as most pilots know, is a very well known what they call bush plane. It's very, good heavy duty, short takeoff landing. It's a good 4-place seaplane. They work very well on floats and on wheels. It is what's called a conventional geared airplane on wheels. It's got main gear and a tail wheel, which it can be a little trickier than a tricycle gear airplane, but it's just much better for rough fields, short fields, gravel bars, and things like that. The red and white one is a 1958 Piper PA-18 Super Cub. This is the smaller engine, 95 horse. Up until winter before last, it had the original cotton cover on it from 1958, and I brought it in and stripped it down to the bare frame and recovered it and did all the rebuild, and we're just about ready to do a test flight on it now. Well, the Widgeon is, a very unique airplane, and it can be a handful to learn how to get on and off the water. So there's a certain amount of pride that goes in if you can actually, handle a Widgeon well on and off the water and, tame its porpoising characteristics. But the fact that it's a twin engine flying boat amphibian, why there's just not many of those around. And of course, being built by Grumman, the slang term Grumman Tank and Iron Works, they're built really strong, just like everything that Grumman ever built. Well, the float plane, especially here in the Northwest, there's just so many options, lakes and rivers and bays and places to go. I spent 20 years flying in Alaska spotting fish, and it was all pretty much on floats. And it's just also a large safety factor. If you ever have an engine failure or problem, the floats are much more robust than just the landing gear, and if you have to do a forced landing, why the floats will, even on land, will absorb most of the energy and leave the rest of the airplane and hopefully the pilot pretty much intact. So it just gives you a lot bigger safety margin. As I mentioned to Joel earlier, 1958 Piper PA-18 Super Cub. Up until winter before last, it had the original cotton cover on it, which is pretty unique for an airplane of that age. So I brought it up in the shop here and tore it all the way down to bare frame and recovered it and brought it back, and it's just about done. A few little tidy up things to do on it, and it'll be ready for test flight. So we're looking forward to getting this one back in the air. I had the seats covered in leather and with extra thick cushions for a little added comfort. Found an outfit to do the decals down in Florida. They're all just exact as the factory did original. I did leave the magneto switch. This is the original red paint that it had on it when it left the factory in 1958. So I wanted to keep one piece of this totally original, and that's it. The rest of it's been brought back to just pretty much the way it was when it left the factory.
So Dan, I'm looking at this paint job and I'm thinking, look at the masking job here and the numbers. How long did it take you to mask those numbers off?
Well, it took hours and hours, and we saved all the original cover from the airplane. So this paint job is the exact same way it was painted when in 1958. But all of these numbers are all hand masked and very carefully trimmed with vinyl tape to get the right dimensions and clear lines and corners, and it was quite a job to both mask and then take the tape off after it was painted.
Congratulations, I'm impressed.
Everything on this table and those shelves back there are all what they call NOS, or new old stock L19 bird dog parts. Anything from fuel pumps to just who knows it. It's just there's engine parts, airframe parts, and a lot of hard to find stuff. And we have another probably twice as many shelves as what we see here spread around the shop of more parts.
Well, look at this. An old wood boat even. Dan, tell me a little bit about this boat here.
Well, this is, I believe, a 1959 21-foot Chris Craft with the 8-cylinder V8 in it, and we're just putting a new transmission in it, so it hasn't been in the water this summer or the summer last summer, but we tried to get it done for this summer, but not quite. So we got a brand new transmission, and we're just finishing up the mounting and the adjustments, and it should be ready to go.
Well, it looks like you got more projects around here than I've got. How do you decide what to do when you get up?
Sometimes I just take a number out of a hat and say, what am I going to work on today?
Well, Dan, I got to tell you, this is really a nostalgia trip being out here. I appreciate all you've done. It's been great knowing you, and thanks for all the parts.
You bet, Ken.
They're going to
My
find
pleasure.
some good homes, but I tell you, if you need any help on these projects out here, I might find some time when I retire.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
We'll see you again soon.
Okay, take care. Thanks.
So, Joel, I think we've got everything we need. Let's close this trailer up, and we're going to roll out.